every Jewish community everywhere had somebody like a Todd Richmond, we wouldn't have anything to worry about. But like I said, he is on the forefront, and he has a lot to share. So without any further ado, I give you Todd Richmond this afternoon.
Thank you. Well, what are these little cards up here?
Take one. Oh my, yeah, I keep needing to pass them around. You know what? While you're talking, I'll pass them around.
See, you come here, you get a gift.
It is, yeah. They're
Does anybody need a sticky, by the way? No, I'm joking.
different blessings for
We
the
should.
new year. So not coming in handing, pour so much, but if you want that.
Well, Rabbi, thank you for that kind introduction. I greatly appreciate it. Your sermon last night made me kind of change a bunch of stuff today. So, no, you talked about your trip to Germany and Austria, and you said that the Nazis were democratically elected, right? Hamas was democratically elected. And there's been many times when, we've had, democratically elected governments that have not been good for the Jews. So I kind of thought about that last night and kind of jotted down some words to talk a little bit about this election. I've probably been doing this for about 15 years. And besides last year when I talked a little bit more about, my incident, as we call it now in Union Square, when I was at the pro-Palestinian rally and I took out the flag and I took a tambourine. I got beat up there. But it was the first year I didn't really talk that much about Israeli politics. And as I started really putting something together for this year, it just kept coming back to me about elections, and how elections mean something, and how votes mean something, and how in this day and age, in this political world we live in, that unfortunately we are all taking too much of a back step and are not participating in the process. Many times I also kind of don't read off paper, but I wrote some stuff, so I do want to do that today. And since we are all here, as Rob Freund knows, you can always interrupt in the middle of whatever I'm saying. If you want to do a comment, you have a question, let's make this lively as much as we can, because I don't want anybody to fall asleep. So first of all, this is on the record. Yes, on the record. On the record, but just don't quote me. So anyway, Shana Tova and Gamar Chatima Tova to everybody. We are gathered here today on Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the Jewish year, a day of reflection, teshuvah, of confronting the truth. Today we pray, we fast, we face ourselves, but we also must face the world that we live in, a world that is growing more dangerous for Jews as the days go on. So let me confront that truth. As Jews, we're taught, Lo ta'amod al dam re'echa. Do not stand idly by the blood of your neighbor. Or don't stand idly by while something dangerous is happening to your neighbor. But we also must not stand idly by our own, especially when we ourselves are in danger. And right now, I personally feel that too many in our community are doing just that. So today I want to address that in terms of political activism and our given right in this country, which too many times we do not do, is vote and have a say in our voice. Over the past year, I've heard too many times when I've talked about the mayoral election, I've had dozens of conversations where people have said, my one vote does not matter. So let me be blunt. It matters and it counts. Elections have consequences for our safety, for our dignity, for our future. And most times our future is actually decided by what we do in the present or what we did in the past. So let's take a look at a couple of close elections and how history would have been different, and thus showing how every single vote mattered. In Florida, George W. Bush beat Al Gore and won the presidency by 537 votes, an election that shaped America's trajectory for a generation. In 1916, Woodrow Wilson, in the last state to be counted, won California by 3,240 votes. That kept us out of World War I for a crucial period of time. And on not such a historic level, in 1974, the Senate race in New Hampshire was decided by 2 votes. 2 votes. In 1964, the Nevada Senate election was decided by 48 votes. And in 2020 and 2022, there were 2 House seats that were decided by 6 votes and 546 votes, respectively. And last year, Yasmin Ansari, a proud ally of the Jewish community, won her election by 39 votes in Arizona against a would-be anti-Israel squad member. Just 39 votes. She is now sitting in the U.S. Congress. In 2020, a no-named anti-Israel socialist activist named Zoran Mandani won his seat in the New York State Assembly by a couple of hundred votes. A couple of hundred votes, that's it. Think about that. If people really cared and took the time to vote, would this man, who no one took seriously, win his seat, and now he becomes the leading candidate to become the mayor of the most populated Jewish city in the world? This is the same man who refused to condemn the slogan, "Globalize the Intifada," a slogan that doesn't seek peace, of course, or speak of peace, but of violence. A man arrested just days after October 7th, when over 1,200 Israelis, men, women, and children, and infants were murdered by Hamas, protesting in front of Senator Schumer's home and getting arrested, out there screaming in Grand Central Station while it was being vandalized, condemning Israel while blood is still seeping out of people on the streets of the Gaza envelope. A man who shouts, "Free Palestine," at rallies, not as a call for coexistence, but in a context that celebrates terror and for the eradication of the Jewish homeland. But it doesn't end there. Zoran Mamdani has moderated his views, as most people after a primary. They try and become a little bit more centrist. They try to attract a broader base. But he has doubled down during this time on his hate for Israel and his dislike of Jews that support it as well. He has said he wants to remove the IRA definition, the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism. He wants to repeal what Mayor Adams did when he instituted it. The IRA is the internationally recognized standard used to protect Jews from hate. He was the lead sponsor of Not on Our Dime Act in Albany when he was he still is a state assemblyman, a bill that's aimed at defunding Jewish and Israeli organizations that support Israel's right to exist. If he becomes mayor, will he cut support for the Cornell Technion Graduate School, one of the most successful collaborations between Israel and New York in terms of the educational field? Will he boycott Israeli or Jewish-owned products as part of his vision for open city supermarkets? What about the special relationship that New York City has with the State of Israel? Will he rip up the recent agreement that Mayor Adams just had with Nir Barkat, the economic minister, an agreement that fosters trade, technology, and innovation? We already saw Jewish New York City Comptroller Brad Lander stop purchasing Israeli bonds. Mamdani has gone further. He said he would oppose investing in them altogether. Now, he can't do that, We have Mark Levine, who is going to be the new New York City Controller. Good man, supports the U.S.-Israel relationship, and he himself has said that he would buy Israel bonds, just as New York City and New York State has been doing for decades. But Mamdani still is out there talking about the fact that we should oppose that altogether. And as I said before, your vote matters. Elections have consequences. And when elected officials stay silent or use certain words and participate in certain actions, do not pretend that this cannot and will not lead to horrendous actions. We've seen Jews stabbed and killed in Washington, D.C. by an attacker who was globalizing the Intifada. We've seen a Holocaust survivor in Boulder set on fire who passed away while someone is screaming, "Free Palestine." And just this morning, at a synagogue in Manchester, England, it was the site of a terror attack, stabbing, and car ramming, where 2 people were killed and 4 are seriously injured. This, all the while, the previous night, pro-Palestinian protesters marching through London, setting off fireworks, uncontrolled, under banners that demonize and call for the destruction of Israel. When elected officials tolerate this rhetoric, violence occurs. You think there's a relationship here? Of course there is. Elected officials want to stay in office, or they want to get elected. And if we as a community stay silent, then they stay silent. And even worse, they become a mouthpiece against us. I remember Congressman Peter King coming up to me. I think this is when I actually did work at AIPAC, and he was talking to me about the fact that no one is calling him in terms of a certain situation. I don't even remember what the situation was. But he was saying something that he was getting 5-to-1, 8-to-1, 10-to-1 calls against support for Israel. This is on Long Island, people. There are enough of us to pick up the phone or send an email where our local members of Congress will hear from us to support that. We don't need everyone to agree with us politically. Even amongst ourselves, we don't need to be in a constant agreement. But we have a right and we have an obligation to ensure that those who hold power do not threaten us or our safety or our legitimacy. Yet once again, I fear that we are standing idly by, not just in the streets, not just online, but in our homes and even at our Shabbat tables. At a Shabbat meal I was at last month, we were talking about the New York City mayor election with some young New Yorkers. And I was shocked. I mean, they were concerned. They were truly concerned. But I was shocked that several of them were still registered in other states. They live here, but they were still registered in other states. One of them just said, well, I want to stay there, register there just because I liked where I used to live. Here in this synagogue, I've spoken to parents whose kids live in New York City, work in New York City, date in New York City, spend every day in New York City, but yet they're still registered to vote out here. Often because a lot of them will say, well, I don't want them to have to pay New York City income taxes, or maybe it's just easier. Whatever it is, your vote matters. Too many in our community just don't believe that's true. But it does. Your children's safety depends on it. Your synagogue's future depends on it. Our dignity depends on it. So if we're teaching our next generation that their voices are irrelevant, right? You don't need to vote. You don't need to register where you're at. When it comes to the most powerful civic act an American can do, which is vote, then we're failing them, ourselves, our future, and our future doesn't look good when we do that. So we must vote. We must organize. We must speak. We must remember that democracy is not a guarantee. It's a tool, and we must use it. Not just for ourselves, for our children, as I said, in our synagogues, our survival, So on this Yom Kippur, as we ask God to inscribe us in the book of life, let us remember we're also writing the story of our people with every choice that we make. Let us choose life, let us choose courage, let us choose action, let us vote and mobilize, because every vote matters and our lives do as well. So as I said before, this is not my normal talk. And if we want to kind of delve into the world of Israeli politics, I'm all in. But I just felt that maybe it's you guys are my couch to pontificate about this. But it's a real serious problem, and we really need to come together as a community. So Gamar Chatima Tova, and let me stop there. Joel, go for it, baby. Let's do it.
I agree with everything, of course, you're saying on Dr. What concerns me is when I see the moderate conservative, the moderate Democratic leaders standing behind him, endorsing him. Aren't they as guilty like Hochul? I mean, we have our governor who's endorsing him now. What's your feelings about that? Or the other Democratic leaders who, I mean, Swazi is the only one I know who is coming out against him.
Yeah. Yeah. So listen. So Hakeem Jeffries hasn't, Schumer hasn't, Gillibrand hasn't, Jay Jacobs hasn't, Swazi hasn't, Laura Gillen hasn't. So, say again? Richie Torres hasn't. So my question here is, how many people in this room has actually contacted their congressman, Tom Swazi, to say, listen, I know you haven't supported Mamdani. I know you're getting a lot of heat from it. I just wanted to say thank you. I mean, I know the answer. I mean, no one really does it, right? No. So let me give me 1 second, Rob. Let me just kind of comment. So it's about elections, and so people want to stay in office, they want to be elected, and they read the tea leaves, right? So I tell everyone that lives in New York, listen, I know I don't bring in politics. I mean, the last time I spoke here, someone actually thought I was a Republican, believe it or not, right? When I'm here, I am as bipartisan as one can be. I don't care if you're left, right, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, progressive, it's irrelevant. But if you live in New York City, I don't care if you're right of Attila the Hun, you need to be registered as a Democrat. Why? Because 99% of the elections that happen in New York City are solely decided in the primary, right? So here you have Mamdani who wins the primary, right? 9% of the people in New York City vote. Most Democrats didn't vote either. Most people just didn't vote. The people that vote in primaries are either the very progressive or the very conservative. Most moderates don't vote. So now you have someone like Kathy Hochul, right? Listen, I am not supportive of any Democrat that endorses Mamdani. In my mind, he's not even a real Democrat. He's a Democratic socialist. He was part of the uncommitted vote. He didn't come out to support Kamala Harris, whatever it might be. So all these Democrats that say, I need to support the Democratic nominee, to me, that's kind of a little bit of a cop-out. But they look at the elections, and that's what Kathy Hochul's doing. Trust me, I assume that she did a lot of polling before she did that, because she's going to have her lieutenant governor challenging her, and some others that might be as well. And you're going to see a lot more pressure on Hakeem Jeffries and some of these other people, because they'll be primaried in a primary. And once again, those people that go out and vote are the ones that are the most radical. And so you kind of understand why some of them are doing it. I'm not supportive of it, but that's just the way it is. Rob. Yeah, and we have, and one of the things that we have to do is understand where we are today in the world, right? So last night, for those that weren't sleeping when the rabbi was talking, no, I'm joking, Rabbi. But he, you did, you mentioned the fact that your tour guide, who said in the 1950s he was taught that Germany lost the war. But the kids today are learning that the Allies freed Germany from the Nazis. It's a different narrative today for these young people that are sitting in front of you. And so it's a completely different type of messaging that we need to somehow figure out how to relate to them and let them relate to it. You talked when we were in synagogue today about getting younger people to be those mouthpieces, right? It's not someone who's in their 50s that are doing it, but yeah, exactly, Benji, that's you. No, but it's a different world, and it's and yeah, they've been prepared. They've been doing this since 1992. I think the FBI uncovered a session in Philadelphia where the Palestinian movement was already planning for this specific day, right? Tom Swazi tells me the story about when he was with a Palestinian activist, and he said, "What are you doing? You keep you lose every vote on Capitol Hill." He goes, "Yeah, we might be losing all the votes on Capitol Hill, but we're winning all the minds on college campuses, and those are the future members that will be on the Hill." Right? We build buildings on college campuses. Qatar and other places are building chairs on college campuses, and that's who's molding those minds. In terms of, this group of 45 people that we have here today, so, I don't know if anybody saw the movie October 8. If you haven't seen October 8, rent it and see it. It really shows exactly why Rob was saying on the day after the worst massacre of Jews that people were out on the streets protesting against Israel. Protesting against Israel as there's still, once again, the blood is oozing out of people. But we showed the film at Duke University. I was on a panel there having a discussion about political activism as well as what happened to me last year. And my son and some of his friends brought some non-Jewish people to the film. And they said to my son and his friends afterwards, "I didn't know. I didn't know that this is what you as a student in the Jewish community is dealing with. They were shocked. I mean, we live it every day. I mean, the American Jewish Committee just came out with a survey that thinks 77% of Jews feel, much less safe today than they did last year at this point. But we know it. Most people don't. I was on the train the other day talking to a friend of mine, Asian American guy. We were talking all about this type of stuff. He had no clue what was going on. So part of what we need to do is we need to educate our friends. We need to educate those that are not Jewish. And you think if we don't know about, if they don't know about this, and the opposite side, the other side of us knows about this, they are the ones that are mobilizing while we are not. And we really need to make sure we do that.
I'll try not to blast everybody out of here with this now. And I'm under a microphone. Just it's really more of a point, and also a question, is education of people is important, but to get them to turn on a screen or read an article or go to a news outlet that's counter to the narrative that they've been hearing their entire life or recently, to learn that there's an alternative set of facts out there. People tend to be in the echo chamber. People who watch Fox News watch Fox News. People who watch MSNBC watch MSNBC. People who are on TikTok are seeking out what they want to see on TikTok. And we can, in our circle of friends, have conversations and try and enlighten people. But as far as the larger masses are concerned, there are so many different news outlets where basically anything goes, and anyone can say anything they want, and the things aren't fact-checked, and there's no counterpoint. How do you get that larger voice out there so that people actually seek out this information and learn from it? It's important to us, so we live this, and this is our lives. But there is a much louder voice that's obviously much more organized, and we are also a minority. There are many more people out there who are not like us, who don't think like us, who don't like us. So how do you get that barrier past where the information is out there and more accessible, to the people that need to hear it?
Yeah. It's funny because Rob and I were having this conversation in synagogue earlier today as well. So I think it is for every one pro-Israel comment or influence or whatever it might be, I think there's 54 to 56 that are against us. It's almost impossible. Not saying, we give up. I mean, I don't know if anyone ever read the book Hitler's Willing Executioners. It's one of the scariest books I've ever, actually I couldn't even finish it. I was so disgusted by it.
Is that called the Goldenhagen book?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a brainwashing of people. That's why you see 100,000 people crossing over the bridge in Sydney Harbor, where you see, what's going on in Europe or even here. It's a daunting thing. Daunting. And I think we're doing a really shitty job, excuse my French. Sorry. I think we're doing a really awful job. I think Israel is doing an even worse job. I think the Hasbara that they try and do. I mean, I think I was speaking with someone recently that there were some questions from, I don't know if it was a French news media, and they were trying to get in touch with someone from the IDF, but the IDF didn't even have a French-speaking person to answer their questions.
Oh, God.
So, I don't really know what the answer is. All I can say is that, everyone just has to do what they can do. I mean, I go on Twitter and I post like crazy. I mean, I'll copy and paste something and then I'll paste it 50 times on the things. You know, I'm involved in some organizations, you know, where we do certain things like that. The other thing also is that you have to try and concentrate on certain things. So let me give you an example. So the rabbi talked about that I'm the founder, co-founder, and former co-chair of DMFI, Democratic Majority for Israel, pro-Israel democratic organization that fights the fight within the party to make sure that it remains pro-Israel. Not such an easy thing to do right now, by the way. At the DNC, or other events that we do, is we'll geofence those areas. So like at the Democratic Convention, we have the specific zip codes or the convention center where we were sending in, you know, certain messages, commercials, you know, pinpointing things that would resonate with those people, right? You have to resonate with them. And so sometimes doing it that way is the only way to really do it. You have to be more focused. And I think that the heritage Jewish organizations need to kind of come together and figure out how to do that in a much better way.
I want to add a few things because I'm very involved with the groups like Stand With Us, you know, in addition to APAC, and they're on the forefront of the college campuses. But the battle lines now, it was the college campuses like a decade ago. Now you're seeing it in high schools, you're seeing it in school districts, you're seeing it amongst educational boards. I mean, it's really scary, the content that is getting out there. And I think younger people don't read books. I'm sorry, I don't mean to generalize, and I apologize, you know, for Billy and Tyler if I'm wrong. But I mean, do you guys read newspapers or do you read from your screens, short form content? So that's